Welcome back. In this lecture, we will discuss cross-fold validation. So by the end of this lecture, you should be able to define cross-fold validation and understand when a variant of it or another technique needs to be used to both create and evaluate a model. Now let's go back to our favorite data set of irises. And in an earlier lecture, we talked about training and testing data. And now there's, of course, validation, but for purposes of this lecture, we will keep the split between training and testing to keep things simple. Now let's say we split our data between training and testing as shown here. At first glance, just by looking at the number of rows, it seems like a pretty reasonable thing to do. But let's look at that training data. There is only a single sample that is labeled with that with class number 2 of that particular species of iris. And meanwhile, in the testing data, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 samples that have that particular label. So what we end up having is a model that's fitting better to the samples that it's not being evaluated on. Now, in terms of just splitting a data set randomly, this of course can happen, and maybe it's difficult to avoid. The purpose of this lecture is to find out how to overcome these challenges. So, what is the whole purpose of identifying a good training testing split? Well, in general, some principles that we'd like to adhere by is we want to maximize the amount of data in the training set because we want to allow that model to be trained from as much data in the distribution as possible. Meanwhile, the testing data should be disjoint from the training data, but it should have a similar distribution because we're going on the assumption that, hey, the data that is distributed throughout our historical data is what we want to design the model for. Now, we want to do a robust evaluation of the model with respect to the historical data set in total. So if we took a split like I showed you in the last slide, it would not be a robust evaluation. It would perform poorly for that particular class of flower that was underrepresented in the training data. And additionally, for some of those flowers, like the one in class 0, we would have no clue about how well or poorly it performed because it wasn't even represented in the testing data. Now, of course, these things could be difficult to achieve simultaneously, and in many machine learning applications, we may have a limited amount of data. So this is where cross-fold validation comes into help. So the idea is that we take our historical data and we partition it several times over. And then we rearrange those partitions in multiple ways to have different training and testing pairs. And then what we do is each of those pairs we could consider a single data set. And so we might have then multiple evaluations, and we can look at an aggregate, such as an average or median, of performance scores over those multiple evaluations. So let's make this a little more concrete. You might hear the term K cross-fold validation, and K is simply the number of partitions you're dividing the historical data up into. These have to be just approximately equal. They don't have to be precisely equal. We're just and from this, we're going to have K number of training testing pairs, where testing is defined as one single partition and the training data will be the rest. And now we're going to evaluate the approach K number of times, and we will take, say, the average or median of all those evaluations. So let's look at what this looks like. Here's our data set. We have 5 different partitions. The one in yellow, that's the one we use for testing, the remainder we use for training. Now we use those same partitions, and we just change what we use for training. Now, partition 2 is not used in training and used as the test data set, while the rest is used for training. And you see something analogous for the rest. Just to see this a different way, we can arrange it where we see that which partition of the data set is used in training and what is used in testing. And now we have 5 different ways of evaluating our model or our approach on this data. So let's talk about a little bit of nuance here. So first, common values for K you're going to see generally like 5 and 10. This is just pretty standard of what's emerged in most use cases. You will want to go with a lower number if you have a lesser amount of data and higher number if you have more data. Another technique is kind of interesting. It's called leave one out cross-validation. And here, the test set will always consist of a single sample. This has some pros and cons to doing it because each test you either are going to be 100% correct or 0% correct. But at the same time, this way of cross-validation maximizes the amount of data you have to train your model. An alternative approach would be to look at what's called bootstrap confidence intervals. And here, you have to carefully select just one split for training and testing. And then when you test the data, then you take subsamples of the test set and you look at the performance score within, say, the 95% confidence interval of evaluations on those subsamples. There is another special consideration called temporal intermixing, and this can cause a cross-fold validation to fail. Now notice when I talked about partitioning the data set, I didn't give you any types of requirements on how to partition. I just said they have to be approximately equal. Well, how can this go wrong? Suppose I have time series data and the class labels in an earlier time period may contribute to features in a later time period. And so I don't want to randomly just mix up the data in a partition because I could end up making predictions of things that occurred in the past based on future data. And of course, we'll end up having a model that fits really nicely but doesn't perform well in practice because you don't see into the future, obviously. So this is where random partitioning will fail. And so, again, this problem is well known, and it's called temporal intermixing. Really, the best solution to this problem is the first step is just knowing it can be a problem. Many people in their given use case might not even think about this. So it's important to consider. So let's look at a couple ways that we can still use our cross-fold validation technique and avoid temporal intermixing. So the first is we can, we can still divide up the data into multiple folds, but we do this based on the temporal sequence of the data. So everything that happened in partition 5 occurred after partitions 1 through 4. And I can do this, I gradually increase the test set with each of the different folds. Now, the issue here, of course, is the model is going to look much different in the first fold, where I have a lot more data. I have 4 partitions being used to train that model, as opposed to the last one. So this could lead to some results, most often where you'll see that you could obtain maybe much better recall with the first fold and much better precision with the last one. An alternative to resolve this problem is to look at a sliding time window. However, the drawback with this is you may need this will generally work if you have a little bit more data. And here, you're only going to use 2 partitions at each fold, one for training and one for testing, and you're going to slide this partition across the data, as seen here. So moving beyond cross-fold validation techniques, you may want to divide up your data between training and testing in a way that maintains certain statistical distributions of data. One clear example is the target class. As we saw in our opening example, by picking a poor partition of the data, certain underrepresented target classes didn't even show up in the test data. So this is kind of one thing to consider. There are other use cases where maybe you're evaluating a machine learning model that is looking at attributes of people. And in this case, it might be appropriate to consider various demographic bits of information and making sure those are uniform across the partitions. So these are difficult to do if you're partitioning the data, 5 or 10 times. A little bit easier if you're just partitioning it once. And so if it's to the point where you can't successfully maintain that distribution across more than 2 partitions, you may have to resort to another technique like bootstrap confidence intervals that we mentioned earlier. So thank you for tuning in, and stay tuned for more content.